the Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community Podcast. I'm your host, Patrice Saget. This is an incredible show. Let me tell you this, first of all. This is part one. So I have with me here in studio a good friend, Dr. Joel Freeman, and we're going to talk about this. This is not a book. This is a library that he just recently released. Him and some partners will talk about it, called Black History 360, an exclusive account of American history, Black history. So our topic today is going to be Black History 365. And we're going to go through this as much as we can today, and we'll have him back to continue. Now, what Dr. Freeman has allowed us to do today is this. If you're watching or listening, by the way, if you know educators, whether Christian, non-Christian, doesn't really matter. They have schools or operators or whatever. You want to right now reach out to them to tune in. They are going to be blessed. And we're going to have a giveaway. So one of you, we've got a number. You know what the number is, between 1 and 100. If you type in the right number on your Facebook, we'll be able for you to get a free e-version of this library of Black history at no cost to you for 1 year. All right. What you have to do, we'll give you clues throughout the show. You have to go ahead and type in the number on your Facebook link or whatever you're watching or seeing this through. This is only for our live audience, obviously. If you listen to this or watching this after our live show, obviously this will not work. But right now, if you're watching or listening, as we give you clues, you type a number. If you get the right number, here's what we need. The number, we also need your email address and your name. And if you're with an organization, what organization you're with, so that you can see if you're going to win a free copy of ebook of this of this book library. Dr. Joel, I'm going to read a bit about you because I think it's important for our audience. I grew up in Washington, D.C. You were a hometown hero, and people understand why when I read this. For 20 NBA seasons, Dr. Freeman served as player development mentor, character coach for the Washington Bullets Wizards, surviving 6 coaching changes. Having grown up in Canada, it was during this period of time, working with NBA players, that his rather unique interest in Black history first emerged. And we understand why, because a lot of the Black players, obviously. In 1995, he co-authored Return to Glory, which, by the way, this particular book was it just took off in the DC metro area, probably around the nation and the world, but I know in the DC metro area it took off. The powerful styling of the Black race. Basketball legend Julius Dr. J. Irvin wrote the foreword. Millions around the world have seen the film version of Return to Glory. It's available in Spanish, Portuguese, French, English subtitles. And by the way, this is his latest project. Dr. Joel, welcome to the podcast.
Patrice, it is so good to be here. It's good to see you, and very excited about our conversation today.
Well, thank you so much. You know, you really impressed me. You came and spoke to us once, and I was looking at our book that year, and we owe you an honorarium, sir, and you still stay my friend. You never asked for anything. So first, thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Completely
love it. I love it. But first of all, Dr. Joel, you have been just an incredible pillar for the DC metro area in the area of faith, culture, and just impacting the church and economics for a long time. Before marketplace ministry was popular, you were at it. So give us a big background. What got you into all of this?
Well, I grew up in Alberta, Canada, and left home when I was 17. I became a long-haired hippie, a dope-smoking fool, and hitchhiked probably 5,000 or 6,000 miles on this thumb right here, all around North America. I had a conversion experience on September 10th, 1972, that just turned my life around 180 degrees. It was almost like a Paul on the road to Damascus experience. I mean, it was completely 180 degrees from where I was going. And then I signed up for Bible school the very next day. I ended up about 7 years later becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA, as you mentioned. And that's where my first interest in Black history emerged, because the players, their position in life attracts a lot of insincere people. Insincere in the sense that they're always looking for some angle. What can I get from you? And so for them to be able to take a look at me as a white guy from Canada, and to be able to trust me, and they ask questions to determine whether or not I was worthy of their trust. And what happened is it became something that really caused me to start studying, because I didn't have a clue. It's like, what did Jesus look like? What part did people of African descent play in biblical and extra biblical history? And so then what happened is I met Dr. Walter Milton in some 2 decades ago. And then 2.5 years ago, he called, and because he knew I owned a Black history collection. I've done 2 exhibits at the United Nations. We had over 1 million people show up. 3 in conjunction with the White House. 2 at the Clinton Presidential Library. About 8 events with the Secret Service in downtown D.C. and a bunch of other venues. He knew all about this, and he just thought it'd be a great collaboration to have a Black man and a white man coming together to create this project. And then my interest in entrepreneurship emerged many years ago. And because I'm always looking, when I talk with anyone, I'm looking at what is the gateway to connect with this particular individual, and then to bring it to eternal matters.
That is incredible. That is incredible. Now, when you did return to glory, tell us about the impact of that in the Black church and Black community, in America in general. What did you see?
And this is an actual copy of the book right here. You can see Julius Irving wrote the foreword for it, and did it with a gentleman by the name of Don Griffin. This book right here became a film version, which is now in French, Portuguese, Spanish, and English subtitles. We wanted to put it in those languages because of the colonization of Africa. We can reach pretty much the entire continent of Africa. And that film is in every international school library across the continent of Africa, because I've done a lot of work around the continent of Africa with the international school community, the Association of International Schools of Africa. And also done a lot of work with the kings and queens, especially in the western part of Africa, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Nigeria, that region, and about tribal conflict and those types of things. So this book really opened up the door to the film version has been seen by millions of people, and that's how I connected with Dr. Walter Milton, where he was in Springfield, Illinois, which is Abraham Lincoln country, and he was at the National Park Services, and this young man read this book, and then he contacted Dr. Milton and said, you need to meet Joel Freeman. And he called me and says, you need to meet Walter Milton. And he kept bugging both of us because we were both crazy busy. And after a while, we ultimately connected, and here we are.
Wow, incredible. You are obviously a white man, but yet somehow God has given your heart this sense of the Black experience, its importance. You also conservative, Christian. Many of us conservative oftentimes don't understand the importance of Black history, its relevance. What makes Joel Freeman unique?
Well, I think I'm not sure how to respond to that question. First of all, politically, I'm a registered independent. I'm just mad at both party machines.
Of course.
I just think I see the ineptness and ineptitude, and sometimes I wonder about the graft involved behind the scenes. In fact, in the textbook, we have a picture of 2 trees, a red tree and a blue tree, with the Capitol building behind it. And underneath, the root systems are shaking hands together. And we talk about the danger of, Black people in the deadly dance with both American political party machines. But having said that, I think that maybe is a unique characteristic in the way I'm wired. But also, I grew up in Canada, and where I come from, a little town of 2,000 people, I feel like I'm a throwback to the 30s. We had no television in our home, And during the winter months, from late October to early April, I was on the ice 2, 3, 4 hours a day. We had 9 ice hockey rinks in a small town of 2,000 people. Just wrap your head around that. And then I was always, we had folks with horses, and we'd go gopher hunting, shooting on the prairies. And it just was a kind of a different type of a childhood. And so I don't have all of the images that people have in their minds. I remember when I heard about John F. Kennedy being shot. I remember where I was in the town, where I was on the sidewalk when I heard about this, when someone told me what happened. And so all of those images are more in my head, not what I saw, the images of what I heard later on. So when I left home, I came across the border to U.S. and it's just like the whole race relation issue is like, what the heck is going on down here? I couldn't quite grasp it. And so I guess what I have inside of me is that when someone tries to use guilt or shame or anything like that with me, I let them try, and 99% of the time I just blow it off. But sometimes I'll just say to someone, something you need to know about me is whatever button you're trying to push with me, I just don't got that button. And so you can keep pushing away. It might work with another white dude here, another white guy in America here, but it's not working with me. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. And so, I have perhaps a different sensibility about the way I approach everything. In fact, even the way I got interested in Black history was not the normal, about the social injustice issues of America or the world. It was the biblical aspect. When I saw that in Isaiah chapter 18, in this book here, we unpack it word by word. And Isaiah 18 is talking about a racially ethnically specific group of people in a specific part of Africa. It's talking about Isaiah 18 about people from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia who are tall, smooth of skin, awesome to be feared from the beginning onward. And so that's in Ethiopia, that region of the world. So when I saw that Isaiah was talking, about a group of people right around 750 BC, right around that time frame, people that would have a rise of unparalleled. In fact, Nahum 3, right around the same time, said that their power was boundless. Now, the Bible is not given to hyperbole or exaggeration. So I had to look for extra biblical information to help corroborate that, to make sense in my little pea brain. And that's what launched me on all of this, is the Bible's view of people from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And it says in the King Jimmy version, it says that their power was boundless, but it says that they were terrible from the beginning onward. And so I started looking for all kinds of evidence. I found it in abundance. And then it talks about a rise of epic proportion, and then a fall of epic proportion, and then a return to glory. And that's what pulled me in. Now, the social and the justice issues came later, like the caboose on the train. But the engine of that train was the biblical frame of reference.
And what I love about that point is that is the redemptive approach, right? Because unfortunately, when we go at it from the social justice angle, we tend to get caught up in the pain or the issues versus being pivoted towards a solution and outcome. And I think you're absolutely right about that. Again, we're talking to Dr. Joel Freeman about this book, his latest project, Black History 360, in a 365 of Black 65, sorry, let's look account of American history. If you are able to guess the number that we have, a little hint for you, this number throughout Scripture is repeated in the Old Testament and the New Testament about its significance. So as far as leadership is concerned, and so if you're able to guess that number, Dr. Phil provides you a free ebook version of this for 12 months, 1 year. Just give us your name, your organization, your email address with the number. If you guess the right number, you'll get it. Dr. Phil, let's talk about entrepreneurship a little bit, and then we're going to get into the book. Obviously, we're an organization working with entrepreneurs from around the world. From your vantage point, having looked at history in general, having looked at the church, tell us about what do you believe the importance of entrepreneurship in the context of Christianity and the evangelical movement around the world? Why is entrepreneurship important?
Yeah, I'd like to say we have one. I'll respond to that. We have one ebook license, so whoever gets the closest to this number between.
That's right. That's right. We have one.
I don't want to be able to. I don't want to be on the hook for a whole bunch to send out. Just want to clarify that. Rephrase your question on that.
So let's talk about entrepreneurship. Kind of in the context of Christianity, the globe. What's the role of entrepreneurship from your vantage point when it comes to the advancement of the gospel?
Well, I think that what happens is that we have many different methods that we utilize to, first of all, to live our lives, to reach out to other people. I ended up writing this book called "If Nobody Loves You, Create the Demand." It's all about the entrepreneurial journey, taking an idea to the marketplace. And the main reason I wrote this is because, first of all, this is kind of a sidebar. The way I write books is I've taken an inventory of where my counsel is in demand. And this will be germane to your question. And so I found out that people were calling me about, I've got an idea, I've got an invention, I've got, how do I take this to scale? How do I scale this? What are some of the basis? Just as you have, you formed a whole ministry, Nehemiah, because your counsel was in demand in that particular area, and you took it. You kind of did what I did on steroids and making it international. But what I see is that God is very interested in the practical side of life. The way that when you look at Jacob when he's working for Laban and all the sheep and the goats and everything else, and the way they figured things out, and the way Laban wasn't dealing with Jacob very well. I mean, he was tricking him all the time about his wife, first Leah and then Rachel, and then he'd say, okay, you only get this kind of goat, and then God would, or sheep, and then God would figure it out, and change the spots and everything else so that they were all Jacob's. And so God is, I think, very interested in the practical side of things, of how are people going to function in life. And so the opportunities, the ideas that come, and the way that engages the emotions, the visionary aspect, the creativity. And creativity, and everyone gets ideas, and some are a dime a dozen, but it's the people who put hands and feet to those ideas, who actually come up with a business plan, who actually begin to start implementing it, bring in people around them that will help to give them a full 360 view of what's happening, and maybe take a look at the blind spots, the things that hinder them, maybe even the self-sabotage. Maybe I'm not worthy to be successful, and so then I'll sabotage my business in different ways through laziness, procrastination, and things like that. And so I think that God is interested in all of this, and I view that entrepreneurship, there's nothing quite like it that helps a person understand how to deal with objections, how to deal with personal rejection, how to account for their finances, to invest wisely, to give wisely, to receive wisely, and to apportion it out to various people that they know and love, and maybe to people that don't even know and love. When it comes to taking care of widows and orphans, I think the reason why those two categories of individuals were chosen is because they can't give back. And so it helps to test the motives of greed and wanting something in return. So all of this is built around the topic of entrepreneurship. And so it's all about personal development. One of the things I learned early on is I needed to be feeding my mind with people who had ideas that I didn't have, that were bigger than anything that I could think of, that helped to expand my mind and my vision. And then I found out very early in my life that I would be, the way I'm wired personality-wise, is I'd get excited about one thing, but I'd never finish it. I'd get something else would distract me, and I'd get pulled in this direction, this direction, this direction. So entrepreneurial ideas became a way for me to learn how to say, okay, whatever I start, I'm going to finish. And so I am going to be very careful what I start because I'm going to finish it, whatever it is. Even if it was the wrong thing to start, I'm going to finish it. And so to learn, I think the whole entrepreneurial journey helps to connect us so many ways to growing and to expanding. And then you bring it into the missions realm, and to be able to go to another country and have something that adds real world value, whether it's a cafe or maybe developing a new brand of coffee, and then employing people locally to be able to encourage them. Maybe it's people making masks or some other tribal things that people around the world want, and then scaling that and bringing that out and helping people. Maybe the microfinancing of opening up a bicycle repair shop that costs $500 to start, and then to have that person pay it back incrementally over time, and then to learn what it takes to have an investment. There's no free lunch, no interest needed, but just paying it back so that can be then used to help somebody else. All of those things are bound up in and around entrepreneurship, and I love it.
Wow. I'm not sure if you guys caught this, but you made a point about self-sabotage. And I never thought about it this way. You talked about the fact that you start something, and because of you don't believe in yourself, because of internal issues, you sabotage it through procrastination, through laziness. And so could you talk a bit about that? Because particularly in minority communities in general, not exclusively, one of the challenges often is that very thing. Women as well, that idea that because I don't have confidence, because of how I perceive myself based on what others said about me, I then start moving forward, and somehow there's this psychological sabotage. Talk to us about that. I mean, how real is that, and how do you overcome that?
I think that what happens is, we're all inspired by stories of people who maybe have lost an appendage, or both arms, let's say, or someone who has maybe been in a house burning and they've had to have reconstruction on their face or something like that, or someone that has palsy, because of maybe the fault of the doctor that delivered the child, and now they've got one leg that doesn't work properly, and to see individuals that have overcome tremendous amount of odds. I think that the seeds that we see in them is that they sometimes look at whatever was a deficit as a blessing, instead of a curse, because it forced them to move to another whole nother realm, a whole nother level. Now, all of us have stories we can talk about, of significant people, significant authority figures, a teacher, a parent, next door neighbor, an uncle, a grandparent, someone at our faith community, someone who has said, or a teacher that says, you really can't do that. You might as well. I mean, when you think about it, we're either going to work in fast food or in the military or work for somebody else or become an entrepreneur or something. There are a limited number of choices. And then you look at what color is your parachute, and we can say there are clusters of things of interest that people are drawn to, people type business, working with technology, with inanimate objects, machines. And you have all these different categories, these clusters of job opportunities. And so what happens, I think, is that the biggest factor is what's in our mind. I heard a story just the other day about a gentleman who was homeless. He went in to get a job and as a janitor. And the person said, okay, I think you fit the bill. I just need an email address to send you, your standard operating procedures, health insurance, all the different information about the job here. And he says, well, ma'am, I don't have an email address. And so it finally came down. She had nothing to send to him. And so he didn't get the job. Well, he then somehow he got some fruit. He was able to resell the fruit, a small amount, which he then took the money and got more and sold that, got more. He ended up getting a grocery store. He ended up becoming very successful. And then someone said to him many years ago, it said, many years later, and said, I'd like to send you something. What's your email address? He says, I don't have an email address because if I did, I'd still be working in that job. And it's just kind of, but the point is that I think that when it comes to self-sabotage, there are messages that come externally that we will hold on to internally. And I think what happens is that we have to fight against those things. And as a faith person, it's called dying daily, and it's identifying, it's being ruthless about those things and just coming up against them and fighting them, and being someone of perseverance and never losing our sense of humor in the process. And that's the cool thing about it, is that we can be people who are ruthless warriors who have a crazy, even a dark sense of humor about us, about life. And then what happens, my wife and I, we talk about this, that if we're having an argument, or say when we're having an argument, a disagreement about something, if we're going to be laughing about this a year from now, let's get through this and then let's laugh about it. And let's have an appropriate sense of what life is all about. And I think that the entrepreneurial journey helps to smoke all that stuff out. As long as we do nothing, nothing's there to push us. The people that go up into space, they have to do resistance exercises. If I watch a video about exercising, planking, doing yoga, or whatever it is, if I watch a video, it's doing nothing for me. I have to actually engage in it. I have to actually get involved in order. That resistance is what brings about success in our lives, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and entrepreneurially, I think, is a very important part. But in entrepreneurship, smokes that stuff out. And then we blame the job, we blame the economy, we blame our town laws, we blame everything external, and the people who do what they do after they're exhausted. Those are the people who move into a whole nother direction. Another thing is that studies have been done that when we have this curve, where we're just beginning to take off, most people quit just before it takes off.
This is good. I'm not sure if you guys are learning here, but this is good stuff. As a matter of fact, Dr. Freeman, you're not going to have to go to Africa. I know you've been there, but we're going to have to do it because as you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, combined with what you've done here, that combined with the idea of biblical entrepreneurship can free the African people. I really been my heart of heart. So we're going to figure that out because, whether it's Kenya, Congo, guys, be on the lookout because we're going to figure out how to bring him into the continent to really address, because one of the challenges, that whole idea of self-sabotage goes back at the root of understanding your history. Because if you understand who you are, if you have a clear sense of where you're from, you are less likely to self-sabotage and most likely to press through those challenges. Another question for you, and then we'll transition to the book. I promise you guys. You've been able to really represent, or been able to effectively keep your faith at the core and bring about solutions in the marketplace that are beyond the church, that contributes to the betterment of African Americans or culture, whatever the case might be. Let's talk a bit about that, because I think oftentimes people of faith can be very narrow and not see themselves as innovators of culture more broadly. How have you been able to do that while still preserving your core as a man of faith?
Well, it's for me, I think that it's so easy to get caught in this church echo chamber, and that produces some unconscious, confirmation bias, and all the rest of it. So I pastored for 18 years. I was a chaplain for 20 seasons concurrently during that period, generally speaking. And so I know what it's like to be in the church community and the church milieu, church culture. And I always measured what was going on internally by how many other people that are outside my faith, how many friends I had. And if all my friends are only people of like faith, I began to check myself and began to look at, okay, what can I do? I'm not a drinker, but then I'd go to a bar and I just hang out, order a Coke, and just talk with people, and just to get to know people, and so those are the kinds of things that I've always done in my life. Cross culturally in our church when I was a pastor. I never read a book about bringing diversity into the church. It's just people were naturally drawn. And then one evening, one day, I reached out to all black people in our church. And I said, I'd like to meet you on Thursday evening. And come on over to the church and let's talk. And we had a whole bunch of people, and I had 3 questions. Number 1, what drew you here? Number 2, what has kept you here? And number 3, what would hold you back from leadership here? And you can imagine, it's just that created volcanoes of conversation that we talked about so many different things. My point being is that I think that when it comes to solutions, when everyone was kneeling, NFL players in American football were kneeling, I came up with a solution to the kneeling situation that made the team owners, players, and fans and the advertisers happy. I sent it to folks in the NFL, and I came to the conclusion that no one was looking for a solution. And I just came to that because everyone who saw it said they'd be nuts not to implement this. And it comes to the hair care and beauty industry. I look around and I see 90% plus is owned by Asians. I'm not mad at Asians. It was just, there's a whole history there. But I looked at the predatory lending and cosmetology. I looked at the different layers to this. And I've come up with a 10-year plan. It might even be done in about 5 years. A 10-year plan that to be able to take back the hair care and beauty industry, top-down, bottom-up model. And I already have about a dozen people now who have signed an NDA, and we're working on that behind the scenes to begin to affect this. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, and it is hair care and beauty in the African American community is as recession-proof as gambling, as alcohol, as prostitution, and as tobacco. And so it's something that has real stability from an economic sense. And then to have people at the top who are running it, looking for alternatives to chemicals for hair straightening, bringing an aqua-based hair straightening so that people in the industry can last longer than 15 years without their lungs getting cooked by the chemicals and destroying people's scalps, and to private label it and to cause something that is animated around a story. Because Africans and people of African descent across Africa, the only exception is Egypt. It's an oral tradition. And to be able to have a storyline that is built around a woman entrepreneur by the name of Annie Malone, to build a story around her. She built up a business that had over 75,000 women entrepreneurs in the late teens and 1920s. Astonishing when you think about all the pressure from above, from the Supreme Court on down, and the issue she had, the concrete that was on top of her was overwhelming. But she was able to come through like a blade of grass and created a meadow of women entrepreneurs in a time when men were hired last and fired first, black men. And so those are the kinds of things that I love to look at. And with this textbook here, to our knowledge, we have heard that this is the first time in the history of America that we have a full-blown K through 12 Black history curriculum. Why is that? I don't know. But and why Walter and I doing this? But that's the reflection, because when you're in a jar, you can't read the label. And other people who are reading the label for us, we've been in a jar for 2.5 years, 12 to 16-hour days, like the movie Groundhog Day, day after day after day after day. I'm still trying to discover what it's like to be free from that, and it's still a little weird and awkward. But for 2.5 years, Walter and I were down the rabbit hole creating this now that is historic, and it's a solution, not the solution, but a solution to the education gap in America.
Wow, this is incredible. So let's talk about it. So your timing is interesting. You worked on it for 2.5 years, and you released it. I got my copy last year. Thank you so much for that. and you released it right at a time where America needed a solution to address our race problem. Now, Dr. Freeman, did you time this?
There's no way we could have timed it. In fact, we had chosen Juneteenth of last year, 2020, to be our launch date. And there's no way we would have known that the George Floyd situation would have happened around that time. And it just happened. And you
got Trump, George Floyd, the police element that kind of went, and you've also got the pandemic. You got all of that kind of worked together, and it's as though you knew something was going to happen in the future.
It's astonishing. All I can say is this is our love letter to the world. God's fingerprints are all over it, and we are just astonished. We now have a team of over 75 people, all experts in their field, whether it's InDesign graphics or the designing of a curriculum, SEO, funnels and search engine optimization and funnels and marketing and sales, professional development. Because if we were doing a math curriculum, we'd just be transactional. Just say, hey, 2 + 2 = 4. Here's the teacher's guide. Give us our money and go do it. But we are dealing with issues that have vexed our country for centuries. And so we have to come alongside the instructors and help them to unpack their own stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then unpack the material so that people are not caught up with being too militant or not militant enough, too right, too left politically, too up Pollyanna-ish or too down, too discouraging or negative or just shame-filled. And we have a razor's edge that we call truth centrism. And Walter is Black, and so he is the keeper of the razor's edge. It's his experience in America, not mine. And he's the trailblazer in all of this. And to be able to come alongside instructors and help them to understand how to make this a truly student-centered experience. And I'll share this with you, Patrice, is that 4 things that informed everything we did with this textbook. And we're inviting people, because it engages all ages, but we're inviting people to, first of all, become critical thinkers. I don't know about you, but every time I use my cell phone and talk to Siri on here, I feel my brain incrementally turning to mush, my critical thinking skills. Yes. And so to invite people to become critical thinkers, compassionate listeners, 2 ears, 1 mouth, there's a parable there somewhere, and then to become fact-based, respectful communicators in the way they share their information with each other. And then fourthly, the first 3 we've been doing for decades and decades and decades, thinking, listening, and speaking. The 4th is built on those, and perhaps the most important. It requires that foundation of the first 3 to become an action-oriented solutionist. And even when Walter and I were creating this project, we'd have freak-out times. I'll show you this right here. This is a external hard drive. It says BH365. It fried on me. It took me 2.5 months to recover what was in this hard drive that fried. They couldn't get anything out of it. I freaked out for about 4 hours. I mean, I was beside myself. And this is just one time. And then what Walter and I did is we said, okay, our freak out times will only be 90 seconds. But we will freak out, and we'll freak out boldly. And we might even say a few bad words in the process, or think them anyway. But we will freak out boldly and grandly for 90 seconds. But on the 91st second, boom! Now we have to come up with a solution.
I love it. Let me tell you guys a bit about this gentleman, Walter. Dr. Milton is a native of Rochester, New York. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Alabama and Master of Science from SUNY College at Brockport. He took postgraduate courses at the University of Rochester and received his master's certificate, including his superintendent license. He has taught at several universities across America. He holds a doctorate in leadership and policy from the University of Buffalo. He has also published several books, including Professional Staff and Parent Perception of Parent Involvement, Me in the Making, One Man's Journey to Becoming a School Superintendent, Why Black Men Must Save Black Boys in America Public School. It goes on and on. It's just incredible. So he's an educator. So an educator, in partnership with a preacher, entrepreneur, come together to produce this. A black man, a white man. the way it ought to be. Again, we're talking to Dr. Joe Freeman. Again, I'm not sure you guys don't want this 1 year subscription. We're going to keep it up. Again, the common denominator between Jesus Christ and Jacob, there's a common denominator between Jacob and Jacob with the number that we're looking at. Just take a wild guess, post it up there, give us your name, email address, and the organization, and you may just win that. You're the closest person to the number we have. Dr. Freeman, so when you think about what's going on right now with our nation, how important, first, how has it been received, first of all? How has it been received?
I'll tell you what, I call it an educational earthquake that is gently rolling across the nation. Right now we have, for instance, you have Denver school systems. You know, they have their state, their board of education there. And they looked at all other options and they chose ours, head and shoulders above everything else. Peoria, same thing, same scenario. And because it's so thick, the reason why we chose it to make it so thick, because most textbooks are no more than maybe 400 pages. This is 1,248 pages. We could have made this 3 books, 3 volumes, and actually increased our bottom line because we could have charged more for each volume. But instead, we wanted to have people feel 5.5 pounds, feel the gravitas of Black history. That's what we wanted to kind of just plop this on the desk of a superintendent and say, take a look at them apples,
Wow.
But
so there's a statement in the size.
Yes.
Wow.
And so it's just like Apple Computer. They don't sell iPhones.
That's right.
They're not selling watches. They're not selling all this stuff. They are actually reaching out to customers to gain customers. But then the second thing is to awe them, to overwhelm them. I know people who still hold on to the boxes their iPhones came in because the boxes are so cool. They're awed by it. And then to reach out to their customers on an annual basis to let them know what's coming next. And that's what we're trying to do, is using that model. They're a true $2 trillion enterprise now, but we're trying to have something that is engaging people with a real world a resource that is scratching where they're itching, awe them when they see it, and then number 3, to reach out, to be connected with them with what's coming next and how we're adding more supplemental material and those types of things. So right now, this is just taking off. We have music. We have 41 songs written and lyrics that are sponsored. In other words, every chapter in this textbook has a summary in hip hop form.
Wow.
And so it's 41 songs. It's like an anthology of Black history because we start in ancient Africa to modern times. So there's a gentle timeline to the music. And some who have listened to it have said, this could be the next Hamilton on Broadway. It's that good.
Wow.
And within a matter of weeks, it hit #1 on iTunes downloads in the most difficult category of hip hop.
Oh my goodness, this is incredible. You talked about your competitive advantage. You said there were, I believe, 12 or 10 key distinctions. Let's go over that. What are the 10 distinctions that makes this far superior from any of the competitors?
Well, first of all, it's the collection. What other organization is going to have access, personal access to a collection? Educators are always looking for what original material are you putting in this. We don't want just the hackneyed regular stuff. I don't want to downplay it, but it's Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and you can name the 4 or 5 things every February that people talk about. So things that are different. So for instance, I have in my collection 6 genuine slave insurance policies. Think about that. 6 genuine slave insurance policies. And so we spend a whole section just talking about slave insurance policies and what that meant to this industry. And then also we have QR codes. So throughout the whole book, we have these QR codes that you see here. And the QR codes are that lead people. So what they do is they put their cell phone over the QR code, and then what happens is they come up, they put the camera on, the QR code comes up, they then push on their phone, and up pops a video, a film, or a website. And there's over 2,000 of them. And we have a proprietary process that we use. We have an FTP site. It's imperceptible to the user. It goes straight up to the FTP site, then to the target. If and when the target goes down, in 45 seconds, we can change it to another target or create a target for it if we want to. So that means that we can bake it into, we can print it on paper. It's stuck. We're stuck with it. But now we're not stuck because we can point to another target. A dear friend of mine who works for Johns Hopkins, he's the head of their IT for their medical department. He's the one that gave us that idea on how to do it. We've never seen it anywhere else, doing it this way. Then we have something called the elephant experience. And by the way, just to give you an idea, you can open up this book as you have to pretty much any page in this book, and it's filled with images. Can you see all that? All the images. And you got over 2,500 images, and 1/5 of those images, in fact, all these images on this page, these 2 pages are from my collection. Wow. And stuff that people have never seen before. And so then we have something called the elephant experience. So the elephant experience, I'll show you an image of the elephant. It's kind of a funky, hippy-dippy looking elephant. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Yep.
And so the elephant experience, why the elephant? First of all, it's the metaphor of the elephant in the room. Everyone gets that. That's international. Hey, there's an elephant in the room. What are we going to do about it? So we intuitively know these are going to be tough topics. And so we have throughout the textbook, first of all, imagine you're at a Thai restaurant or a Chinese or a Mexican restaurant. You open up the menu and you look and you see a little red pepper next to a dish. You intuitively know that's going to be hot and spicy. Now, some people are attracted only to those dishes. Some are repelled by those dishes. And so what happens is our elephant is our little red pepper to let the parents, the students, and the educators know we need to prepare you in advance before we start discussing this in the room, because we don't want this to be a divisive experience. We want this to be a healing experience and use the Socratic method to become to individual collective understanding about this particular topic. Plus, we're going to pry everyone loose from their unconscious, their confirmation bias bubbles. So where there's a binary choice, we provide both views. So whether it's 3/5 of a human being, Uncle Tom, reparations, the N-word, scientific racism, the doctrine of discovery, are we in a post-racial society after a black president for 2 terms? Can a white person ever fully understand the black experience in America? All these different topics. Should we tear the statues down? All these different topics, we provide both views. We never tip our hand in terms of what we're thinking and feeling, so it becomes a student-centered experience. And we train the teachers, whatever their agenda is, please step away from your agenda so that you can then let the curriculum do the heavy lifting for you. Another thing is that we have chapter check-ins where we reestablish eye contact with the reader and say, what are you thinking and feeling about what you just read? We then have also at the end of every unit, we have a capstone experience. For instance, at the end of the first unit, we have the students all come together and put together a virtual Black History Museum. So now they have to think, okay, what are we going to do for the first room? What are we going to do for the second room? How are we going to set up the first room to make them ready for the next room? And what's the takeaway of this whole? So it gets them thinking critically, talking compassionately, listening carefully and to each other and all the different aspects, and then coming up with a solution together. And then also we have the music. I have a list here of things. I sometimes don't remember all of them. We have the sidebar material that's written in a more chatty. So anything that you see here that is green, I'll see if I can find it right away. Anything that's backed by green. Okay, here we have something called Irish labor's killing an African-American worker. It's all backed by green. And then when you have something backed by yellow, you immediately know that is going to be an elephant experience. So all this is about the Jesse Washington lynching in Waco, Texas. And we don't blink. We walk straight into these tough topics. But the way we prepare the students in advance is that the first class is not about Black history. It's about the students developing rules of engagement made up of we will not statements They own it. They create it. They own it. And if someone breaks it, they determine how they're going to handle that student, that peer. And then the second class, here is something from the mid 1800s, my collection. It's a talking stick, about 16 inches long. Here you see the chief, the king at the top, but he's playing a musical instrument. We know it as a kalimba, the thumb piano. And so if you notice carefully, he's got this instrument in his hand. And one historian told me he's at the top because he has preeminence in the tribal system. But he's playing a musical instrument because it means that he's relevant to all generations. And he's communicating and connecting with everyone from young kids to a 99-year-old person in the community. And music has a transcendent quality to it. Wow. So we have that. And also we have STEM.
What's that one called?
This is called a talking stick.
Talking stick. So,
yeah, whoever holds the talking stick has the authority in the tribal council to speak. Oh. Everyone else must listen, has the authority to listen. So the student,
does a talking stick comes with the material for the classroom?
Well, you can see.
Virtual.
We show it in the curriculum. I don't see if I can see if I can find it right away.
Wow.
We have it in the curriculum. And then what happens is that I can't find it right away. But what happens is the teacher in the teacher's guide, they help the students understand, about what it means for good communication, feedback, asking open-ended questions. Don't be plotting what you're going to say while you're listening to someone else talk, and those types of things. And then they're going to adopt 8 to 10 of those elements. They'll come up with artifacts that help remind them about those elements, like a button, to open with each other. And then they'll fix that to the stick, and then maybe a feather to have wings to get to the point. And then what happens is that for the first 3-4 weeks or so, they'll use it physically in the classroom. They will hold their talking stick. Whoever's holding it will talk, and then they'll pass it on to the next person once they feel listened to. But after 3 or 4 weeks, it becomes a metaphor. Hey, Sally, Timothy's got the talking stick, and you know what that means.
Wow, incredible. What's number 9?
Then we also have a Solutionist Academy. And the Solutionist Academy is that we have, it's a situation where, let's say there's a school that has an adoption cycle of 5 years. Every 5 years, they adopt a new social studies curriculum. And we're catching them 2 years into a 5-year cycle. So they can say, oh, we love it. We love what you got here. But, we're 2 years into a 5-year cycle. We have no funding. So we say, oh, that's wonderful. Here's how you deal with objections. You already have it in advance. You know in advance what the objections are going to be, and you have that's wonderful. We've got the answer for you. And so our response is we've come up with something called the Solutionist Academy. And the Solutionist Academy is that we have an after-school or Saturday school program. You can use different funding. Here in the U.S., we call it, there's 21st century dollars, there's Title I dollars, Title IV, and even some Title IX dollars are available. So you got a pot over here that's empty, but over here you got some pots that are full for this type of a program. Now what happens, they establish a beachhead in their school. So when someone else comes along with another textbook curriculum, sorry, we already got that. We got that. We have BH 365. And then 3 years from now, we're going to then adopt this.
Wow. And then number 10?
Number 10 is we have an advisory board made up of about 26 people. And what's important here is we did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We did that about 2 years ago on this entire project. And we knew with a special emphasis on the threats and the weaknesses. And we're thankful for the strengths and the opportunities, but the weaknesses and threats, that's what we want to build this curriculum around. So what happened is that we kind of wrapped Teflon around certain aspects. So that when someone, not if, but when someone, because remember, we're dealing with issues that have vexed our country for centuries. There are people that want to see the destruction of anything that's positive and solutional. And so, because we are providing a solution, not the solution to the education gap in America. So when anyone tries to get traction, they can't get traction. They can try to claw at it. And so one of the things we figured is that when we come to a superintendent or a key decision maker, especially a superintendent, and we say, oh, we've got this Black history curriculum. and you have little cartoon bubbles above that superintendent's head, and you see what they're thinking. You're thinking, oh no, I'm going to get 150 angry parents calling me because they've got images of lynching in there. They talk about tearing down statues, and they talk about all these issues. Oh no, this is going to be a huge issue. And then we come back to them and say, by the way,
nightmare.
What's that?
The PR nightmare.
Yeah. So then we come back and say, oh, by the way, Smokey Robinson, Tears of a Clown and all the different songs. He's an international. He's on our advisory board. Oh, by the way, Ambassador Andrew Young, and one of the few living icons from the 60s, the 50s, 60s, the struggle for civil rights. He is on our advisory board. Oh, by the way, Kathy Hughes, who is the founder of Radio 1 TV 1, one of the largest African-American owned and operated and connecting with African-American audience media empires in the country. Oh, by the way, you remember Alex Haley and Roots? Well, Bill Haley Jr., his grandson, is on our advisory board. Oh, by the way, Dr. Ericana, who is the former ambassador to the African Union, she's on our advisory board. Oh, and so we begin to share with this, and now you can see the tension level comes from 18 down to maybe 9. Now they're in an emotional space where they can hear us. At 18 level of stress, if we're on a scale of 1 to 20, at 18, they're in no place to even hear what we have to say. But we can bring that stress level down to a manageable point. Now we got bandwidth, and they're picking up what we're putting down.
This is incredible. My last question to you, Doc, and then we're gonna have you come back. Victor, actually, I want to schedule him once a month, just so we can go through this. This is good stuff until we kind of launch this thing. Question for you: we have a lot of whites in our community, and many of them may ask the question, "Okay, what's in it for me?" All right, why is this important to white children?
My response to that is first of all, I'm a big fan of curiosity. We've all heard of the purpose-driven life. I live the curiosity-driven life. And curiosity has 2 aspects to it, 2 basic aspects. First of all, there's momentary curiosity. I can remember once I was in Piccadilly Circus in London, and there's a guy with a blue mohawk, and he tats all over his face. And you could imagine every aspect of his body probably had tattoos on it. And he told us it did. And I was with a friend of mine. And now as I was walking along, it's like, it'd be very easy for me to just kind of momentarily go, whoa, that's pretty interesting. I'd like to get to know that guy. But then life pulls you on to something else. And then you forget about it. That's momentary curiosity. Now I'm interested in 24/7 curiosity, and the type of curiosity that is engaging us, not just 9 to 5, because most of corporate America is 9 to 5 curiosity, and people minding their P's and Q's, walking on eggshells, not getting in trouble, not creating any legal nightmares for their corporation or whatever, or faith-based community, whatever it might be. And so it's the whole idea of having a curiosity that is 24/7, that starts as is not just going from 9 to 5, but starts again at 5:01 all the way to 8:59, and runs all the way around. And I think when it comes to this topic, I think it's important for a person who is of my hue, of lighter hue of skin, to look at the benefits of curiosity and to follow up and to become a person that just begins to engage. What happens is that just like investment, if I invest at a high risk level, my return is a high return if it comes through, pans out. If I'm risking financially in an investment that's medium risk, my return will be a medium return. It'll have a band of medium. And then low risk investment is a low return. And so I live my life. I like to be in all 3 investments, low, medium, and high. And I have a certain percentage of my life that I'm in a high risk, where I risk high with people and relationships. And I just tell them in advance, I've got a lot of stuff ricocheting around my little pea brain of mine. And would you mind helping to be one of my cultural guides? I know that your response is not going to be a monolithic view of all people of color, whether it's Asian, Hispanic, Native American, or African American. But I at least am getting some other views. When I'm talking with corporations, I tell them, take a picture of your board. Who is on your board? And if you have only one ethnicity and one gender on your board, you're missing out on a whole lot in terms of discussions at the table, especially if you empower people with other ethnicities, another gender to come on your board and empower them to speak without fear of recrimination or kind of pushed down. And so those are the kind of things that I encourage people to do. I can't live their lives for them, but all I know is that I'm living most of my life at a high risk level. And I get a high return in my investment.
Oh my God, this is incredible. Again, Dr. Joe Freeman, Black History and Exclusive Account of American History, a must-have resource. Educators, individuals. I mean, this is for high school, junior high, elementary, but I tell you, this should be all people in terms of, and we're going to do the best we can so that we can keep sharing this. We're going to have them back. No one won the free 1 year subscription. When we have them back, we're going to do it again. There's nothing like understanding your own story that gives you the confidence and the perseverance to press through challenges. Before we allow Dr. Freeman to give our closing thoughts, if you want to get in touch with him, team, is there a website? Where do they go if they want more information, Dr. Freeman?
Yeah, it's you see the crawl, it's bh365.org. But if someone wanted to write this down on a personal level, BH365, B for Black, H for History, 365.org. But also my personal website is 4 words, joelspeaksrealgood.com. joelspeaksrealgood.com. That'll kind of give an overview and a personal way to get in touch with me.
I love it. Put that up, please, if you can. joelspeaksrealgood.com to get in touch personally with Dr. Joel. And we're going to figure this thing out. I'm going to talk to our urban team. We're going to look at hosting you at a webinar so that we can bring our Africans and African Americans together and just kind of deep dive into this. And then, God willing, bring you into Africa. So, this is critical. Actually, entrepreneurship really cannot truly manifest in the fullest without the context of history, because biblical history without earthly history, it's just empty. They both got to work together. Thank you so much for that. So to get in touch with them, go to bh360.org or go to joelspeaksrealgood.com. Did I say it right?
You got it. Yeah, bh365.org and joelspeaksrealgood.com. You got it.
Hey, if you want to know more about the Nehemiah Project, how we can come alongside you and support you as you build your business, visit our website, NehemiahEcommunity.com. NehemiahEcommunity.com. We have e-community centers popping up around the world that are training entrepreneurs just like you, helping those in business or who are looking to start businesses to build what we call kingdom companies, businesses that are realizing quadruple bottom line. Go to our website, learn about our training program, about our coaching program, about our extra capital, and about how to join the community of entrepreneurs that are transforming the world together. Dr. Joel, many entrepreneurs, individuals faced a tough time in 2020. Many are nervous about 2021. What would encourage you to give them as we wrap up, as they consider what God has for them this year?
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to what you're doing, because I think that's part of the answer and part of my response is I think it's important to get the tools, the skills. I mean, the way that you have broken things down in bite-sized chunks and, given people a way to put their big toe in the water and then their whole foot and then their ankle and get into the water of entrepreneurial living, that journey, that you got to start somewhere. And you provide some great starting points, midpoints, and it's, of course, it's not the destination, it's the essence of the journey. And I think you do a great job. And I think that's a very important component for people making sense out of how to connect with things during these difficult times. Now I want to close with 2 more things. I want to give a thank you to Dr. Walter Milton. When I think about doing this project with different, there's so many different options out there. Dr. Milton, I can't think of anyone else I would rather do this project with than Dr. Milton. And then the second, also, I want to give a shout out to my wife, Shirley, because you can imagine 2.5 years of going down the rabbit hole, 12, 16-hour days. It was crazy. I mean, we still led our educational tours to Israel, led our educational tours to Greece in the fall and the spring. We still went on cruises. We still did this and that. But for the most part, every other waking hour, I was involved with this on some level. And when I was with her, I didn't have a whole lot of energy for her to talk about stuff that she was interested in. So I just spent most of the last month in Barbados thanking her. Whatever you want to do in Barbados, that's what we're going to do. Just thanking her for her kindness and her understanding. And finally, I would say this, Augustine, back in the 4th century, he said, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. And I just want to think about those words, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. It doesn't preclude the need to be understood. It doesn't even guarantee that we will be understood. But I think it's important that we are people who seek to understand, and that's by asking open-ended questions and having the curiosity to want to ask those questions, having the engagement with people, getting out of our self-centeredness, our self-absorption, and reaching out in any way we can, writing notes of appreciation, and getting on Zoom calls with people, making phone calls, getting outside of our comfort zones, but seek to understand. I think if everyone in our viewing, listening audience would spend the next, developmental psychologists tell us that if we spend 28 days on something, we can form a habit. And so I'd just add another 2 days, 30 days with spouse, with kids, with people, next door neighbors, all around us, faith community, work community, everyone should seek to understand everyone around us before seeking to be understood. I think that in our own spheres of influence, we can be change agents for good.
Wow. Good words. With that, we're going to bring Dr. Freeman back. The test or the opportunity ends here. You're going to have to come back and listen to him live. We want somebody actually acting on the live to get the free 1-year subscription. So be on the lookout and we have him back. Let me pray for you. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord enable you to steward those talents, those gifts that are under your care, and to steward them in such a way that one day, like Dr. Freeman, you'll hear those wonderful words. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Guess what? He'll now make you rule over much. God bless you. Doc, thank you so much. We'll have you back.
Thank you so much. This means a lot.